Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Hook, Lock, Sinker. So, common theme in this series, or what I've been doing on this channel lately, is when I don't have a lot of time to fish, I only got like a small window. I always go to spots that I know can get me on fish. So, if you watch this channel for any time, you've seen me fish at the train tracks. So, today is no different. As you just look at the water, it was kind of windy today. The current was a little strong. So I didn't want to go anywhere or really explore too far. I'm watching the Jaguar game on my phone, so I'm not going to be hopping from spot to spot. I want to get out, go fish, catch some fish, but also watch the game as well. This was the Jags versus the 49ers. So it was a good game. We ended up winning. It's kind of frustrating at times, but hey, a win is a win. But anyway, back to fishing. On my way to the spot. It's about 15-minute pedal, so to say, to the spot. So I got a little time taking the scenery, just look at the water and nature. And it's really honestly like today is a good day, bright, sunny, a little cloudy. You know, I didn't know if it was going to rain or not, but even if it did, it wasn't going to be a heavy rain. But all in all, it was a good day, beautiful day. And, just being on the kayak at times like this, I just love, just being on the water, just free from a lot of things, just away from people, just me, myself, and my thoughts. And it's just a very peaceful thing, this is basically my church. You work Monday through Friday, especially me, I'm in the trade field, so I'm out really working outside, digging holes, fixing stuff, working with tools. So it's always nice to just kind of be able to break away from that stuff and go do what I want to do and just be in my zone. So, I was here for maybe a little over 2 hours. And so I'm not going to play the whole trip. Maybe one day I'll put up like my entire fishing trip because I've seen guys do that. They're there for 3 hours. They post the entire 3 hours. Um, some people like that, so I might do that one day and see how people like it. But for now, I'm gonna give you the edited one for you guys who just want to watch a good fishing video without all the long, boring, just sitting there looking at nothing, because that's how it be sometimes. But anyway, I'm gonna cut through to our fishing spot, and I'll see you guys there. All right, so I'm finally here at my spot. I deploy my shallow water anchor, which is about like a 4 or 5 foot stick that I tie a rope to that'll keep me in place when I'm in shallow water. I'm trying to get my rope and everything while watching the game at the same time. It's kind of funny because, I get this tangle out while I'm watching the game, and then, next thing you know, I look back and my stick's untied and I'm just sitting there floating away. You know, my knot had came loose and I was not even attached to anything. It was kind of funny, said some words and then had to go back and go get it, because, I don't want to lose it. So, things that happen while fishing. All right, so normally when I get to my spot, one of the first things I do is break out my float rig. So it's a little cork like this with a weight at the bottom of the cork to keep it upright. And I got a 1 ounce egg weight at the bottom to keep the line nice and vertical. So as it sits vertical in the water, the line with the shrimp is just floating freely. So it looks like a natural presentation. At the top of that float, I got what was called a bobber stopper. So it allows you to set the depth. So if you want your line to go down 5 feet, you set your bobber about 4 feet. So your bait and line is hovering, horizontally, floating through the water with a natural presentation about a foot above the ground because you set your depth. And so I always take it and throw it right in this little current line as you see. So the water is shooting out to the right, and so I'll throw it back to the left, and let it float naturally with that current, kind of presenting a natural presentation with that shrimp that I cut up. So the fish will think it's just a normal shrimp, just going with the current, and they're more inclined to get it so because it looks natural. And so that's one of the first things I do when I get to my spot is use that float rig. Now here is what I usually use as my lure rod. I have a little TA clip at the end of my line because I have an FG knot from braid to my mono. So I have like this little clip that I can either quickly swap out lures. So if I'm using a top water, I don't have to cut the line and put on a new knot to whatever lure I'm using. I just pop it off the clip, so I can either use the paddle tail, top water, a twitch bait, or in this case, just a bare hook. So I can also take a piece of shrimp, throw it on there so it has no weight on there. I think later on I'll put on like a little, like tiny weights just to give it something to keep down at the bottom. And then I'll throw it out in the current naturally so it looks natural as it's floating through. And that gets me a lot of hits. The only thing with that is that, you have to let out some line, so you don't always feel the hit. You just got to let it float for a while, then start reeling it in, and then normally like you got a fish on the line. So that's one of the second methods I use to fish. And my third method is a Carolina rig, which is just braided line with a swivel, braided line with an egg weight to a swivel, and then you have your mono with a bare hook so that it sits on the bottom. And those are usually the three ways I'll fish with a float rig, so I can float at the top of the surface. I got a Carolina rig so I can fish on the bottom of the water, and then I have a lure rod so I can throw artificial lures, or I can take those off and use it as another type of fishing method. So it's kind of versatile. So if I want to fish on the bottom, I'll put on a jig head. If I want to fish kind of in the middle of the surface or somewhere on top, I'll just throw a bare line and hook out with no weight so it'll float. So those are three ways I fish because I only carry 3 rods. And so that's what usually works for me here. And I'll just do the same as you see with my lure rod. I'll just kind of toss it on the current and let it naturally flow. If my float rig just for some reason isn't working, or if I want to throw it out a little further and let it sit out there while I fish close up. So those are different ways I'll fish this area. Alright, so we haven't been here a long time, and I was finally able to get my first fish. I think it's what they call a pig fish for that little oinking sound it makes. But I kept him because sometimes I'll cut him up, use him as bait to try to catch like a big red or sometimes a trout. But at least you guys can't say I got skunked, so that's usually what happens. Again, like how you see me, I just take the lure rod, throw it out there, and I'll let it sit for a while. Then, I'll bring it in, and then I'll have a fish on the line just like that. But they do get bigger. They will get bigger in this video. I will have a go home with it fish, and you'll guys see in this video as well. So one thing that happened, which was kind of funny, well, not funny at the moment. I guess I didn't catch it on camera. So when I first got to my spot, I had thrown out my float rig, and I had started to get a second rod out. I had heard like a like blowing sound, and then I look up and I just see like 2 nostrils stick out in the water and they go down. And for a second, my heart really sank to the bottom of my butt because just in that split second, I looked at those snouts. They really looked like alligator snouts or like some type of gator or crocodile, and they didn't look small. And so for a second, I was really debating about leaving because I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be here with two big old gators just sitting around. Um, but, I didn't want to psych myself out. I was like, it could be a gator, could not be a gator. Luckily, it turned out to be just a couple of like giant manatees. Just, I guess, coming in to see what's going on and who's this in their area. But yeah, for a second, I really about hit that abort button and got up out of there because I'm not going to be there with some big alligators. Even though I got my Glock 43X 9mm on me, I still just did not want to be there. But thankfully, it turned out to be manatees, so I stayed and kept on fishing. So a little time's gone by, and so I decided to cut up our little pigfish and use them for bait. So usually what I like to do is that I'll take off the head as I'm doing here, and then I'll cut off the tail. And so I'll use like the middle part of the fish, which is like the meatiest and chunkiest part. And I'll use that as cut bait because that's what fish are really after. And I think it's the best part to use as well. So this is one of the manatees I was talking about. That's his tail. I don't know what he was doing, but he was doing something where it was like he was like I guess eating grass and constantly flipping his tail up in the air. But it was an absolutely massive manatee. Like his tail alone was like 5 feet wide. And I'm just sitting there watching this giant massive tail just kick up in the air around that crab pot over there. And it was just kind of crazy just how big those things really are. Like, they're big, but when you see them like in person up close like that, I'm on a 12-foot kayak, and those things are bigger than my 12-foot kayak. Not only longer but wider. It just really makes you feel small. And like you think, oh, a 12-foot kayak, that's pretty big, and then you'll see something like that, and you're like, nah, I'm still a small fish out here. But yeah, good thing those things are peaceful because, man, if those things were man eating, I probably would not be out there on that little kayak, just to say.
There we go. There we go, a nice sized black drum. Alright, so far highlight of the day. I don't know, he'd be close. I believe they got to be 14. Ooh, close, but no cigar. Close, but no cigar. There we go. Okay. Ooh. Ooh. He. Ooh. Chill, big dog. Hey, big dog. Like I said, you might be close. He might be close. Last one was close. He seemed like a little bit bigger. Nope. Dang. Y'all boys getting lucky right now.
Alright, so in the state of Florida, black drum have to be at least 14 inches to keep them. And this is the second black drum that has been 13 and a half inches. And he is not the last. Man, I tell you, these guys were getting real lucky. So I almost had 3 keeper black drum in this spot. But like I said, half an inch means a world of difference. You know, half an inch means the difference between a good fish fry or an FWC ticket. So I had to let him go because I don't feel like paying a big fine for a fish. So those guys got lucky, I'll tell you that. But like I said, we ended up getting a go home with a fish, so it all worked out in the end.
Oh. That's right. He wasn't big enough to keep anyway. That was a good hit. Rat red.
So, as you can see, we've been having some action. But you know, I just been kind of slowly missing out on the keeper fish I've been wanting. But you know, when you're just out here catching fish, it's always fun, regardless. I don't think this guy was keeper, but he was kind of close. I think he was like 16, but he put up a good fight. And you know, anytime I get a fish that pulls drag or just has some nice tug to it, it's hard to get upset about that. So you know, unfortunately, he wasn't the keeper. Had to let him go, and then you know went back to watch my videos because sometimes, you know, like I said, I was out here for like 2.5 hours, and it was kind of just sitting there. It gets a little dull and boring. So I have some, you know, videos to watch, or I'll watch the game, or I'll watch like anime or some type of show, something kind of pass the time, or a podcast, just something, you know, to do while I'm doing nothing.
We changed the game and inspired a generation who came behind us. We still got more to do. Still got more to do? Bro, what you gotta do is accept that it's over. You're posting Instagram photos at empty stadiums like a high school quarterback living in the board game. The only thing left to do is retire with dignity before this gets even more embarrassing. It's kind of cute because Malik Neighbors responded to OBJ's post saying, "We still got work to do," and that's cute and all, but let's be real. The Giants aren't bringing back a 32-year-old who can barely separate from linebackers at this point when Ryan Daboll's job is already on the line. Now, CBS Sports suggested that there are potential landing spots that make sense, like the Kansas City Chiefs, the New York Jets, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the San Francisco 49ers. But here's the thing, all of these teams need productive receivers.
Dislocate my arm for a second. Yeah. All right.
So those are the type of fights I live for right there. I like a nice tug. He's pulling drag. He's running all over the place. There's a little bit of chaos going on, but that's one of the main things about fishing I love. That's why catching redfish are probably like my favorite inshore fish to catch because they will put up a fight. They don't even have to be slot size. Like a 16-inch red can pull drag and put up a good fight. But when you catch like an upper slot red or even like a bull redfish that's in the 30, 35 inches or up, I'm telling you, like you'll be there for 10, 15, 20 minutes fighting these jokers, especially if you catch it on light tackle, like how my lure rod is with 10-pound braid, 20-pound mono. You're not going to horse those guys in. You're going to have to wear them out, and it's going to be a good little back and forth to finally get them to the boat or to the shore. And so, one bull took me like 20 something minutes to get him in. He was like 35, 36 inches on this kayak. And like I said, he pulled me in circles about 100 yards on the kayak, just pulling me in circles for 20 minutes before I can finally get him into the boat. Because like he would just come in, pull, drag out, come in, pull, drag out. It was a good little back and forth battle. But that was a good little fight, and we're gonna see, is this finally the fish we get to take home?
1827. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. 18 to 27. Yeah. There we go. All right. We got our redfish. Alright, so we got our keeper redfish, 18 inches. Well, he's like 18 and a quarter. That's fine by me. That's good enough to keep. We're going to play around for a little bit longer.
All right, y'all. So we finally did it. We finally got our keeper redfish or keeper fish in general. Now, I'm really not one of those guys that, even if the limit says you can keep 12 fish, I'm usually not the type of guy that'll limit out. I'll just get enough to where I can eat, and maybe if I want to give one or two to my family. So, I don't always try to catch the full limit unless it's redfish because the limit's only one. But besides that, once I usually get that one fish, I'm kind of happy with my day. So I don't need a whole bunch of fish, but happy we got our keeper. And yeah, man, what can I say? Also, usually if I'm in shallow water like this, like I can literally stand up in this type of water, right? It's not deep at all. That is when I'll hang the fish over the side like this, and I do it for two reasons. One, I might catch a bigger redfish. As you see, I got enough fish on the line here. I might catch a bigger redfish and let that guy go and keep the big fish. And two, when I do bleed them out, I'll hang them over the side in shallow water. But when I'm in like real open water, deeper water, I usually have a bucket, or I open up my little, right between my legs, there's a little hole where if I need to get to my propeller and take out line or weeds around my propeller, I'll bleed them out in there because again, sharks don't want one of them coming up and taking my fish and potentially flipping my kayak with me in there. So when I'm in shallow water like this, it's fine because again, you're not gonna get a big shark in this shallow water. Like there's just really nowhere for them to hide or get that close to you without you seeing them. And then I can bleed them out because that's one thing I always do with any fish I plan to keep. The method is called ikejime, and so usually what it is that you'll stick a knife or a spike in the brain of the fish, kills them instantly. Then the heart will pump for like a few minutes or so after the fish has been killed, and then you'll pump out the blood, and then you'll have a rod and you'll shove it up their spine to really kill any of the nerves in the body. But I don't have all that stuff, so usually I'll either just cut the gills and let them bleed out, because that's really the main thing you want to get out of the fish is the blood, because that will give it that fishy taste and it rot the fish meat faster than anything. So I either cut the gills or I'll take my knife and stick it in the brain, then cut the gills so it bleeds out the fish, and it's more humane that way. Because I never like when people just kick a fish and they'll just throw in the cooler and it's just flopping around till it eventually dies. I always like to kind of do it humanely. So, cutting the gills, letting them bleed out is a quick way to dispatch the fish, or you just put a knife in their brain and then that kills the fish pretty quickly as well, and it's humane. So that's how I like to do my fish. And I don't know about you guys, but you should definitely, if you're keeping fish, definitely bleed them out, because it will improve the quality of the meat and make them taste better, and they will last longer without that blood in the meat and the body of the fish rotting it faster, and then it'll make it taste better because it's not having that fishy taste as well. So just some tips from Locks.
Three of them less than an inch. Y'all motherfuckers lucky. I would have had like 3 black drum and a red.
All right, so I've had an eventful day. Catching fish, got my keeper fish. Almost had 3 keeper black drum, like all three of those black drum were 13.5 inches, which is crazy, you know. But it is what it is. At least I got my fish. I'm happy about that, and it's been a good day. The Jags won, which is another good thing. I'm happy about, because again, the game was real back and forth, up and down, and didn't look like we were gonna win for a moment. But then the last drive, man, we pulled it out and got the W. So Jags won, got a keeper fish, had a good day fishing. Can't complain, man. It was a good Sunday, and so time to head out. Because it's late in the afternoon, about like 6 or so, and around 7 o'clock. Since it's like fall time now, it gets darker quicker, and so I don't want to be out there when it's dark and nighttime, because it'll get real sketch. And so, starting to head out. Got my fish. I'm gonna go ahead and dispatch him. Cut his gills. And as I'm paddling back, I'm gonna go take a look. You see, nice, pretty red. As I'm paddling back, he'll bleed out and expire. And by the time I get to shore, I'll have a nice bled out redfish that I will. Again, when I get to shore, another thing I do with my fish before I go home is that usually when I get to shore, I'll gut them. So I open up the belly with my knife. I have a fork and pliers. I just scoop out the guts and leave them there, because the guts will also ruin the meat if you leave it in the fish. So bleed them out and remove the guts, and you'll have a good clean fish meat for when you're cooking them. So things I like to do. So on our way back, just cruising again, late afternoon scenery. Again, it's just beautiful being out here, beautiful being on the water. I love coming out just anywhere really on Heckscher Drive in Florida, whether it's Browns Creek, Sisters Creek, Hollover Creek, any of those little creek areas. Even if you go out to like the Fort George Inlet, there's just beautiful scenery. It's just amazing. Nature is just beautiful to me. And just something I love to just be in and bask in. But we're gonna cruise on home, and I'll see you guys when I get back to the car.
Alright guys, so we had a good day at our favorite spot. We caught like one pinfish or pigfish, a couple baby catfish, several black drum. There was like at least 3 black drum we caught that were less than an inch away from being keeper, right around 13 and a half mark. So that'd been nice to have a nice little guap of black drum, but it is what it is. Several puppy drums, and we did get one slot redfish. The slot size for redfish is 18 to 27 inches. The one we got was 18 and a quarter, so just barely over the mark, but still keeper. So I'm happy that we get to come home with something. And so we had a good day. I got to watch the Jags game on the kayak. We won. It wasn't a pretty win, but we still won. Florida State won. And so hopefully I win this week in fantasy. It's kind of close on there, so hopefully I get a nice little triple win. And all in all, it's been a great Sunday. Fortunately, tomorrow's Monday and it's right back to work. But it is what it is. At least we're making money. And so, guys, I want to thank you for watching the video. Stay tuned, keep watching. I'm definitely going to try to get out and spend more time in different spots. I don't want to keep hitting the same spots, even though I know those spots produce. But I definitely want to get out to Sisters Creek and explore that area. It's nice little, just get out and just see nature. And I've had good luck at Sisters Creek as well. And so definitely want to do that. There's that bridge right there, right before you get to like Brown's fish bait store. I always want to try that bridge right where the train tracks are. Not where we went today, but like on the other side. There's like a nice row of pilings, so I think that'd be a good place to drop some bait there. I never see too many people fish over there, but I feel like it's a good spot. Definitely other places I want to go. I would love to get back to going out of town, like how we went to Daytona. Definitely want to go places like Sebastian Inlet, Indian River, down in the Keys or down south, and catch some fish out there. Um, so, stay tuned. We got big things coming. And, that's all I can say for right now, guys. Thanks for watching. Keep your lines tight. Locks and load out.